We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
Why did the mayor of Moscow's wife give the Bidens, both of them, $3.5 million for them? That's a lot of money. She gave him $3.5 million. So now I would think Putin would know the answer to that. I think he should release it. I think we should know that answer. Now, you won't get the answer from Ukraine, but why are they giving somebody who knows nothing about energy $187,000 a month plus a $3 million upfront payment? And I won't even talk about China because they haven't gone into Taiwan yet.
Right.
That'll be next. But why did the mayor of Moscow's wife give the Biden family $3.5 million? Nobody wants to ask the question. And Chris Wallace, who's a total lightweight, unlike his father, who interviewed me for 60 Minutes, who was actually a good piece. Mike Wallace was great. He wants to be Mike Wallace, but he doesn't have the talent.
Oh, God.
But why is it that the mayor of Moscow's wife gave the Biden family $3.5 million? I think Putin now would be willing to probably give that answer. I'm sure he knows.
Russia, if you're listening, I hope you can find the 30,000 emails that are missing. You'll be rewarded mightily by our media. Oh, my God. So here you have the former president of the United States of America sitting on a D-list cable station broadcast asking for a favor from a man who is engaged in a genocide, a slaughter of an entire country of people who love democracy so much that they are willing to stay and die for it. But Donald Trump is asking the genocidal maniac to do him a favor and get dirt for him on Hunter Biden again. I don't think he's well. I think he's mentally deranged. I think there's something wrong with him. The Russians are taking people to filtration camps now. They are taking photographs of everybody that they are busing into these filtration camps. I mean, leave it to Russia to come up with a bureaucratic name worthy of Orwell for a concentration camp or a filtration camp. And there's forcible rape going on of women in front of their 4-year-old children. And Donald Trump is asking the man who's causing all of this for a favor to help him get Hunter Biden. Guess where that clip ended up? Guess, everybody. Just guess. Come on. You can do it. You can do it. Yeah, on Russian TV. Now, I hope you're watching because there's no translator that's audible, but there are subtitles in English for this very short clip of Russia One, the propaganda state-run TV station that is now saying to its people and saying to Vlad, you have to help our friend Donald Trump. Do it. Help our friend Donald Trump.
Нам, нашему народу, пришло время призвать народ Соединенных Штатов сменить режим.
Regime translates. Yes, you heard the word regime. He says now is the time to help our friends in the United States to change the regime in the U.S. early, meaning don't wait for 2024. Okay, there's a little more.
В США досрочно и снова помочь нашему.
And again, and to again help our partner Trump. And to again help our partner Trump. Seriously.
Партнеру Трампу стать президентом.
To become president. Would you like to see it all the way through? Here you go.
Нам, нашему народу, пришло время призвать народ Соединенных Штатов сменить режим в США досрочно и снова помочь нашему партнеру Трампу стать президентом.
Partnero Trumpo. Some of the words are pretty self-evident, right? Partnero Trumpo, regime. It translates pretty well. So that is what happens on Russian TV when you have lunatic ex-presidents getting on TV here on D-list channels. They just turn the video around and play it to the Russian people as they lie to the Russian people about the fact that they aren't at war in Ukraine. Now, I told you I've been to Russia, and the last time I was in Russia, there was war in Ukraine. They were, taking over Crimea. And frankly, no one in Russia knew about that either. And I remember it being really freaky creepy because you think we're all living in the 21st century. You think we all have the internet. You think we all have, some sort of TV news. And we all realize that there's always going to be propaganda here in the United States, channels and trolls and all kinds of, interlopers, trying to spread falsehoods and trying to lie and trying to color what their orientation tells them, they believe. And, not doing math if it's, I experienced this with gun violence, okay? When people who were numerically, not challenged, when people who could do numbers, they knew their numbers, and they were able to do their numbers, would find out that the more guns America had, the higher the homicide rate was in America, and not even including, the suicides or the domestic violence or, no, just the homicides, right? Just the violence, the gun violence. And they would sit there and they would paw over these numbers, leave out certain numbers that didn't help them with their cognitive dissonance. Like if they did the complete math problem, they would come to the same conclusion that the numbers are concluding, and that is more guns equal more gun crime. But they couldn't make themselves do it because their whole world would shatter. And so even people who were numerically gifted or able would skip over the part that would disorient them. So that goes on. You do. That is part of what cognitive dissonance is. It's sort of like you believe something so hard that any evidence of the contrary would shatter your world. So you ignore it, or you walk away from it, or you try and twist it or change it, or you omit things. Well, here's the thing. We have a former president of the United States of America who is literally a mob boss, a thug, okay, who is asking for a favor from a man who is literally committing genocide. Now, if this was 1939 or 40 or 41, 2, 3, 4 or 45, and you had a former president, okay, sitting on a TV station saying Hitler knows, Hitler's got dirt on FDR. Hitler knows. Hitler's got dirt on FDR. And Hitler really needs to, cooperate. Hitler really needs to, I need a favor from Hitler. What would America say? What would be the reaction of Americans either before 1941, meaning we didn't have soldiers deployed there, or after 1941 when we did? I think people would be sickened by that. I think people would be outraged by that. I think people would want to tar and feather a person who did that. And it's only because we have so much cognitive dissonance in our country. It's almost to a level of Russian propaganda where the Russians don't even believe they are at war, even though there are Ukrainians that are infiltration camps in their own country that they can actually see. And they're telling these prisoners that the Russians didn't do that.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, The Randi Rhodes Show.
A fact check. The payments the former president is referring to come from a highly criticized Republican-led Senate report released just weeks before the 2020 election. It maintained that Elena Baturina, the widow of Moscow's former mayor, wired $3.5 million to a firm that was associated with Hunter Biden. The report did not show that Hunter Biden received any of that money. In addition, Hunter Biden's legal team has long claimed that he had no interest in the firm and was not paid any of the money in question. As to Trump's claims that Putin knows something about the payments, the Russian president has previously said he was unaware of any business ties between Hunter Biden and Baturina. One thing Trump failed to mention, according to reports, Trump himself was seeking out business with the former mayor of Moscow back in the late 1990s. He had pageants, he had a pageant there, was very involved with Russia.
And his son said, we don't need loans from banks. We get all the money we need from Russia. So, look, the man lies. He is a liar. Putin is a liar. They're both liars. And the idea that they lie to their people in order to empower themselves is a very sick and twisted fact. And the damage that Putin is doing to Russia and Russians right now is something that we dodged ever so slightly, even though how many people died of COVID? How many? Because it was a hoax, I just want you to understand that the kind of rot that is happening to our country and the kind of rot that is happening to Russian society, to middle class Russians, it's the same kind of rot. It's what happens when you have leaders that stand on a stage and say, I alone can fix it, and then start empowering the very elite to get everything from everybody who works. It's so amazing how Americans are falling for the same rot that's eating alive a country that has great people in it. Russians, I know a lot of Russians. I'm from New York, for God's sake, and I'm Ukrainian. Okay, there are a lot of Russians in my life, a lot of them, and they are wonderful people. They're funny. They're great cooks. They love their children. They love culture. They love languages. Okay, they can't dance. Neither can I. It's a flaw. It is. But I mean, it's just people. They're just so badly led by an autocratic dictator. They're just so badly led. And they've resigned themselves to the fact that their vote doesn't matter, that there aren't free and fair elections, that there's nothing they can do about it. And so they just go on with their daily lives as best they can until there's no more sugar. There's no more toilet paper. There's no more, paper towels. There's no more bread. There's no more wheat. There's no nothing there. I mean, we watched this happen here. We watched, the complete contamination of food programs. It's interesting. I almost played it yesterday. But Ivanka tweeted that the poor Ukrainian people, they need food. And so I'm sending millions of meals to them. And God bless the drivers who are driving these meals to these poor people who need the meals. I mean, it was really sick and twisted because I remembered when they did the food box program in the Trump administration and millions and millions and millions of dollars, like tens of millions of dollars went to people who they got contracts who had absolutely no experience in any food arena. I mean, they had no experience with any of it. Nothing. And so you saw milk spoil, you saw meat spoil, you saw things not kept at temperatures that would, they would perish on the way, and they still got paid. I mean, it was such fraud. It was an amazing fraud. People just were, beside themselves with COVID and beside themselves with, what do we do and how do we work and we're at home and we're isolated, that a lot of this corruption went under the radar, but it all happened. It all happened because in chaos you can steal. And I kept on trying to show it to you, but I don't know how many people remember the food box program, and that the really insulting portion of it was not just that tens of millions of dollars were wasted and milk spoiled and contracts went to people who had never delivered a bottle of milk in their lives, right? And meat and poultry and all of this stuff just spoiled, and people were needing that food. They wanted that food. They had to have that food. But that he also made a letter from him. And God knows how much did it cost to print this letter and distribute this letter into every box of spoiled food that he had delivered or that he tried to have delivered. But that man put a letter in every box of food like, you better thank me, I'm Donald Trump, and this food is from me. Using the food as a political way to score political points. I mean, it's a sick, and people mock it. They go, so what do you do? Well, that's the Hatch Act, right? Oh, the Hatch Act. Oh, nobody's been prosecuted under that. Yeah, but you see, this is the incremental decline. This is what happens when you have a scam artist, a fraud, a demagogue, a liar, a cheat, a thug, a mob boss as the president of the United States. And when you see it, even in its infancy, when you saw Donald Trump stand on a stage and say, Russia, if you're listening, you should have known then. You should have known then that this guy had no boundaries, had no ethics, had no morals, had nothing to offer you except hatred and racism and lies and, in the end, violence. So now you see him appealing to a guy who is engaged right at this moment in genocide, a guy who is literally striking civilians and not as collateral damage, not by accident, not because he's using dumb bombs. No, on purpose. This, they say, oh, well, these are unintended consequences of war. No, these are the intended consequences of this war. The intent is to bomb civilians. The intent is to hurt children. The intent is to starve people. It is to surround their city and starve them to death. I'm hearing stories of, sisters who were stuck in, Mariupol, where there was no water, this is where they are forcibly deporting people from Mariupol. They're going through Mariupol, and anybody that's still alive there, the Russians they're telling them, separate the women and children. I mean, this is really Nazi stuff, just so you know. Separate the women and children and from the men. We even want the disabled men, okay? We want everybody separated. And then we're going to take the women and we're going to drive them 600 miles into Russia, put them in these filtration camps and filter them for their political ideology, photograph them, fingerprint them, and take their passports from them. And this is his buddy.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
This is pretty extraordinary. In an interview with the right-wing website out just yesterday, Mr. Trump calls on Vladimir Putin to release this information about Hunter Biden's business dealings in Ukraine. Now, this echoes then-President Trump's call for Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, to investigate the Bidens. That, of course, led to his first impeachment. Only now he's asking Putin to do it while Putin is at war in Ukraine. Now, the Department of Justice is investigating Hunter Biden, but so far he has maintained there's been absolutely no wrongdoing in his business dealings.
And you know what? If the Justice Department finds wrongdoing on Hunter Biden's part, then Hunter Biden ought to stand at the bar of justice and take his punishment. But so far, nothing. The only thing, he makes these numbers up out of whole cloth. The $3.5 million from the mayor, the former mayor of Moscow. Donald Trump had a freaking Miss Universe pageant in Moscow. Is there any self-awareness on his part at all? No. No, there isn't. And, what about Paul Manafort and his little adventure in Ukraine? Did that just escape the Trump, mind? He pardoned Paul Manafort. Paul Manafort was convicted on fraud. He was convicted on fraud and money laundering for laundering money he made in Ukraine by having clients who were tried in Ukraine and found guilty of treason in Ukraine. That was Paul Manafort's a client. Viktor Yanukovych, it's just an amazing story. Here you have Paul Manafort representing Viktor Yanukovych, who was a puppet of Moscow's. He was Putin. In fact, Putin campaigned with Viktor Yanukovych. Putin literally was on the campaign trail vouching for Viktor Yanukovych. Do you know where Paul Manafort's office was? See, now it'll make sense to you. Back then, when we were talking about it, it didn't make any sense to anybody except, people who were, Ukrainian. That his office was in Donetsk. Paul Manafort's office was in the Donbass region. That's where he was in a luxury office building. And he was hired by a guy who was loyal to Putin to help him clean up his image as being a Putin puppet in order to run for re-election. And Manafort, his lobby shop, Manafort's lobby shop, made $60 million doing this work. $60 million. He didn't want to pay taxes on $60 million. So he laundered it and lied about it. And he was convicted, and then Donald Trump pardoned him. The other day, Paul Manafort was trying to get on a plane to Dubai. And they kicked him off the plane because he was flying with a fake passport. And then yesterday, he was on ABC in New York. It's the conservative talk radio station. It hosts Sean Hannity. And when Fat Boy was alive, they hosted his show too. So Paul Manafort went on, WABC in New York. He gave an interview to ABC in New York saying, I never tried to hide any of the money I was making in Ukraine. You were convicted for trying to hide your money in Ukraine that you made from your client who was tried for treason, found guilty and convicted. Why was he tried for treason? His client, he actually tidied him up so much that in 2010, Paul Manafort was able to get Viktor Yanukovych reelected. And convinced the Ukrainian people that Viktor Yanukovych wasn't a Russian puppet, he wasn't loyal to Vlad, that he would help Ukraine move into the EU, that he would help them, reposition themselves away from Russia and more to the West. Except that when there was an agreement between the EU to trade with Ukraine, Putin said, oh, hell no, and Yanukovych refused to sign it. And that's when you had the Maidan Revolution. That's when you had everybody go to the streets. And what they found out was that Viktor Yanukovych was living in the lap of luxury. He had a freaking mansion with a zoo. And there was a black ledger there. And Manafort's name was in the black ledger as receiving payments from Viktor Yanukovych. And that's how we know anything about it. So you thought Manafort was the worst thing that happened to Ukraine. No. Well, anyway, Viktor Yanukovych ended up not only locking up the woman that ran against him, Yulia Tymoshenko, who ran, you remember her, I know you do. She was blonde and she wore braids and she braided them, over her head like a crown of braids. He locked her up after he became president for the crime of running against him. Seriously. That's how dirty this man is. That's how evil he is. That's how Trumpian and Putin-esque that man was. Okay? So he locked up Yulia in jail, in prison. Lock her up. The mentor learned from the mentee. And then after the Maidan happened, people went to the streets because they wanted to sign that EU agreement. They wanted to trade with the European Union instead of 70% of their trade being dependent on Putin, which is what they were facing. Yanukovych called the police out and had 100 protesters shot and killed. That's why he was put on trial. And where did he go? Where did Viktor Yanukovych go? He went to Russia, which is where he is now. And Manafort is sitting on radio shows saying, yeah, I made $60 million in Ukraine. I'm not trying to hide it. But Hunter Biden.
Not that there's anything necessarily wrong with this, but the prosecutors in your case allege that between 2010 and 2014, you made $60 million from working in Ukraine. Is that about right?
I mean, honestly, I don't know how much it was. I mean, but the numbers they were using, I managed a whole bunch of things, including the lobbyists who were filed and were doing the lobbying, not me, in Washington. And so they took the lump sum money as if it was all coming into my pocket. And I was running a major enterprise of lobbyists in Europe to become part of Ukraine, lobbyists in Washington to help them understand what was going on and what Ukraine was trying to do to become part of the European Union, as well as political consulting, because a number of things as well. So that number, and I don't know if 60 is correct over those 4 years or not, but that was not all my money.
Got it.
I did well and openly did well. I didn't hide it.
Yeah, you did, and that's why you were convicted. You were convicted of money laundering. I mean, the liars never stop lying. They just never do. They don't know how. And he's, oh, no, I did some political consult. Yes, for Viktor Yanushchenko, and your client ended up being tried for treason and found guilty of treason in Ukraine. Oh, no, I ran a giant enterprise. Yes, out of a luxury office building in the Donbass region, which is totally aligned with Putin. Oh, my God, these people, they never stop. And he, this interviewer from WABC didn't even, and I listened to the whole damn thing. Yeah, I did, so you didn't have to. But, oh, my God. Didn't even ask him, why were you thrown off a plane the other day? Where were you going? Oh, I was going to Dubai. Why were you going to Dubai? To run away from what I caused in Ukraine? Try and make more business deals? Maybe sell some oil and gas back to Ukraine now? I don't know. But you didn't make it to Dubai. What happened there? Oh, well, my passport. What about it? It was fake. Oh! This is a political consultant. This is the campaign manager for the Trump campaign 2016. The man who changed the platform of the Republican National Committee to not give weapons to Ukraine.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Donald Trump is mentally unwell in a way that makes him interested exclusively in what benefits him. Distinctions between true, false, right, wrong, America's friends, America's enemies are irrelevant to Donald Trump. Russia has helped him financially and politically over the years, and he has aligned himself with Vladimir Putin. This is significant not just because he was president, but he's the leader of one of America's two political parties. He might be president again.
Oh, God.
And this is a moment of moral clarity when Vladimir Putin is slaughtering thousands of people in Ukraine for Republicans who do care about the difference between right, wrong, true, false, America's friends and America's enemies, to reflect on whether this is the person they want to attach their party to.
Or the ideology that they are about. Are they with Putin on the slaughter? Are they asking favors of Putin as he slaughters and commits genocide and sets up camps for women and children to be forcibly deported to out of Ukraine into Russia, to be fingerprinted, deprived of their passports, and photographed, and then asked about their political ideology, whether or not they support Vladimir Putin over their country and their country's quest for independence. I mean, this is really sad and sick. This is a man who obviously is hell-bent on destroying, down to the ash, down to the ground, places that he covets. He did it in Aleppo, Syria. He did it in Grozny, Chechnya. He's doing it now in at least Mariupol and some other cities like Kharkiv and another city called Kherson down there in the southeast portion of Ukraine. I don't know where is the Republican Party saying, oh my God, this is a bridge too far. This is like, asking Hitler for a favor in the middle of, his invasion of Austria, or in the middle of his invasion of Czechoslovakia. This is the same thing. Where are they? Why aren't they speaking up and speaking out? Where are his children saying this is a bridge too far for us? Huh? Where are they? Where's Jim Jordan? Where is Fox News? Where? Let me tell you something. They are not calling him out on any of this. The Fox News people, they're saying, well, Hunter Biden. What about you know what? If Hunter Biden did something that was illegal, if Hunter Biden did something like Paul Manafort did, if Hunter Biden enriched himself, and it cost people their lives in Ukraine, if Hunter Biden, laundered money, if Hunter Biden committed fraud in Ukraine against Ukrainians, let him meet the bar of justice. I don't know anybody that from my viewpoint that would say, oh, he should get away with it. There's just no proof that Hunter Biden did any of those things. There's no evidence to support a claim that Hunter Biden money laundered, or Hunter Biden did anything untoward, or Hunter Biden did anything, illegal. There just isn't. Manafort, on the other hand, has been tried and convicted, pardoned by Donald Trump, and just recently as last week, tried to flee the country on a bad passport and got caught and kicked off a plane here in Miami on his way to Dubai, and then decided to go and repair his image somehow by being interviewed on a New York conservative radio station where he lied. I mean, I don't understand how these people are okay with the Republican elite or the Republican Party, unless they are as corrupt and they are as jaded and they are as eager to steal and loot and plunder America the way that Putin and his henchmen stole and plundered from the Russians. Maybe they think that this is, this is their future. Maybe they think oligarchy is their future. Listen, we have so much rot in our own country already, and it's been building, but it really is getting exponentially worse when you have a leader who lies and says, or calls out little green men. You know what little green men was a reference to when we were showing you little green men in Lafayette Square. Remember that? Lafayette Square was a peaceful protest. And Donald Trump and Bill Barr called out the little green men, meaning guys in uniforms without any insignia on them. So you didn't know who they were. That's exactly what Putin did in Crimea. And the whole time that Putin put, and it turned out to be his intelligence agents. It turned out to be an arm of the GRU. It turned out to be the military arm of, his, intelligence units. Here, it was our Department of Homeland Security. It was prison extraction teams, right? And so the reason why Yanukovych was put on trial was because protesters were shot and killed by his henchmen. And Donald Trump tried to do it in Lafayette Square Park. And when people like me called it out, oh, well, they deserved it. He wanted a photo op and they were in his way. Whatever. I mean, excusing behavior like that is what gets you exponentially further down the rot road, further down the road of corruption, further down the road of I'll take what I want because I can. And there's no rules to stop me. This is, no one is above the law. Bull crap. Obviously, this whole group is above the law. This whole cabal of miscreants is above the law. Here you have Ginny Thomas, okay, Clarence's wife. Clarence is a Supreme Court justice. You would think that alone would make him feel an obligation to do better than he's doing, to rein in any perception of conflict, to say to his wife, advocating for a coup in your text messages isn't really something that you should be doing. Can we talk about it? Can we just, have a bright red line between your other endeavors at the Heritage Foundation and these $700,000 checks that I'm not declaring to protect you? By the way, he did not disclose that his wife had made almost $1 million from the Heritage Foundation in his financial disclosure forms. Okay, he didn't. And that's a problem. But here's the other problem. There's no enforcement mechanism. You can't hold him accountable for failure to disclose financial windfalls that were made that might actually involve cases that come before him. There's no way to hold him accountable for voting no on whether or not presidential records should be turned over to the January 6th Select Committee, who are trying to get to the bottom of the violence we saw on our Capitol on January 6th by a bunch of, militiamen and white supremacists and ethnic cleansers, right? There's no enforcement mechanism. So don't tell me that nobody is above the law in this here country, and that's a problem. But instead of fixing that problem, we're making it worse by saying they can do whatever they want. Karen can do whatever she wants. It's mafia stuff. You understand that? When you realize that there is a hole in the law, when you realize there's no enforcement mechanism for behaving this way, or that the Hatch Act really doesn't have a penalty, and so Donald Trump decides he's going to use fraudulent contracts, millions of dollars in payments to unqualified hunger relief, and I put that in quotations, hunger relief contractors who had been, Congress had warned him multiple times that these people were not real people, that these people were fraudulent people, and that he should not give them contracts to distribute food because they're just lining their pockets with taxpayer dollars. He felt there was no way to hold him accountable for doing this. So not only was he going to do it, but he's going to put a letter in the box saying, this rotten food, this is from me. It's a little gift from your president. I mean, you're talking millions of dollars. He's sitting on some stupid show on the internets saying $3.5 million. That's a lot of money. You know how much money was given to a USDA reimbursed place, a place called YEG? $2.85 million in deliveries. $2.85 million in deliveries. They made a 50% profit, and worse yet, they sent sour milk. And then another one, a $1.7 million contract. For what? Spoiled meat.
Mary had a little man.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me. Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
Ukraine accuses Russia this morning of playing a trick, saying Russian promises after negotiations in Istanbul to drastically reduce military activity around Kyiv and the nearby city of Chernihiv is merely a ploy for time to rearm and consolidate forces. President Zelensky saying Ukraine isn't letting its guard down. The signals we hear from the negotiations can be called positive, he says, but they do not drown out the explosions of Russian shells, adding Ukraine isn't willing to surrender any territory to Russia. Promises also can't drown out what Russia is doing to the city of Mariupol. New satellite images show how Russian strikes have leveled entire blocks. The Pentagon also expressing deep skepticism about Russia's supposed trust-building withdrawals around Kyiv.
We're not prepared to call this a retreat or even a withdrawal.
Russia invaded Ukraine over a month ago from three directions. From the north, down from Belarus toward Kyiv, from the east toward Kharkiv, and from the south toward Mariupol. Russia's northern front around Kyiv has been a disaster. Huge Russian losses and logistical failures, including a 40-mile-long convoy that ran out of gas. The Pentagon believes Russia could now focus on the other fronts while rebuilding forces around Kyiv.
This was a Russian position. You can see the Z that has become the mark of this war on the Russian armored vehicle. And it seems that they were destroyed just as they were camping out in this area. You can see all of their equipment, clothing, flak jackets, and food just left here right at the back of this armored vehicle.
Across Ukraine now, they're not bracing for a Russian ceasefire, not taking the Russians' word, but preparing for more Russian attacks.
Jesus Christ. I mean, it's an amazing thing how Putin is sending people who apparently are not even, qualified. They're low level, like agriculture secretaries posing as, defense ministers to these talks in Istanbul as a distraction, making people think that he's open to a peace negotiation, but he's not open to a peace negotiation. What he's doing is regrouping. What he's doing is protecting the artillery. What he's doing is changing out the troops, right? Now he's down to, the reservists, because the conscripts, holy crap, the stories about them. So first of all, there's no one knows exactly how many, casualties on the Russian side there are, or how many casualties on the Ukrainian side there are. But they seem to think that there's around 16,000 dead Russian soldiers that the Ukrainians have killed. And then there's like this theory of military combat. I don't know if it's, something you should subscribe to or not, but basically what military planners do is they look at the number of casualties, military casualties, and then they multiply that number by 3 so that they can come up with an idea of how many wounded. They think for every killed, there are 3 wounded. So you do the math on 16,000 times 3, and that's how many wounded. So you're talking like an enormous amount of Russian mothers who don't know when their sons are coming home, if their sons are coming home, if their sons are coming home in 1 piece, 2 pieces, 3 pieces, nobody knows, right? So there's that. But he's faking these peace talks in order to buy himself time, in order to change out the troops, because the conscripts are not doing very well at all. A lot of the bombs have been stockpiled for so long that they're duds. Then you now have evidence that not only was their food rations, their MREs from 2015, but now we're finding out that some of them were sent out to the combat zone with bandages and first aid kits, I kid you not, that were 45 years old. 45 years old bandages. Can you believe this? And so he's taking a pause while he reconstitutes his plan. This isn't plan A, which was supposed to be, we sweep in, we take Kiev, we, circle it, and we, starve everybody out, the siege mentality, whatever. No. This is going on almost, it's more than a month now, right? And he's pausing now. And what I fear is that he will do what he does, which is gas the remaining people in the cities that he wants to take. And I'm not sure if the cities that he wants to take are limited to Mariupol. And he wants Mariupol for that infamous land bridge between Crimea, which he took in 2014 with the little green men thing, the whole time lying to the world, saying, there are no troops in Crimea. There are no troops. I don't know what you're talking about. Those are Nazis. Those are, people that want to be with Russia. They're trying to be with Russia. And then repeating that in the eastern portion of Ukraine, in Donetsk, where Paul Manafort's luxury office was, and in Luhansk, which are the 2 regions of this Donbass region that you hear so much about. I don't know, but I could tell you he's not going to stop if he sees any success at all. Any success at all. There was some serious shelling last night. And let me tell you something. You don't ever want to wake up and find Richard Engel reporting from your street. You don't ever want to wake up and see Clarissa Ward down your block. You don't ever want to wake. Oh, they pulled out the heavy artillery this time. Yeah, you got Halagarani. Now, the only people that know who Halagarani is are people who travel, because Halagarani is the CNN international war correspondent. All of a sudden, Halagarani's popping up on CNN domestic. I'm like, oh my God, they're calling out the heavy artillery. And Christian Amanpour is now walking around Kiev in a flak jacket. You don't want to see that. I mean, you think seeing Ben Weiderman might be bad. Jim Cantori in case of a weather event. Yeah. But you don't want to see Halagarani. You don't want to see Christian Amanpour in person. I'm so sorry, you just don't. Not unless you're Jamie Rubin. Nobody wants to see her up close reporting from your neck of the woods. No one. But, oh, my God, it's just, it's crazy. It's crazy.
We all remember the Russians said, we won't invade, right before they launched this massive assault. And now that the initial plan for sweeping across the country has failed, the Pentagon fears the Russians may get even more desperate. A senior administration official telling me that the Russians have given up on what is called maneuver warfare in these areas and are instead reinforcing, moving their tanks and armor into positions outside these cities to protect their long-range artillery, kind of like circling the wagons. And that artillery is what has been doing so much indiscriminate damage. They fire blindly into these cities since their original plan to roll in and take those cities did not work. Now, is there hope for the talks? There always is, but many at the Pentagon fear it is just a distraction while the Russians are trying to resupply and regroup.
So here are some terms for us to learn. This is sick. This is sad. But remember, I told you when Putin was sitting there massing troops on the border that we were going to have to learn things. We were going to have to learn the Sea of Azov. We were going to have to learn things. We were going to have to learn about Donbass and Crimea and Mariupol. We were going to have to learn how to pronounce things. We were going to have to learn how to say these towns. Kherson, the K is silent. Kharkiv, it is not. Okay, I get it. It's confusing. But now you're going to have to learn this little phrase. War of attrition. Or war of exhaustion. This is a tactic where you break the will of the people by exhausting them. By killing so many of them, starving so many of them, isolating so many of them, surrounding so many of them for so long that they lose their will to survive or live or fight. War of attrition.